There's a moment every night, right before you fall asleep, when the noise dies down. No scrolling, no distractions, just you, and the weight of what you didn't do. It's not guilt for doing something wrong. It's shame for doing nothing at all. You said you'd start. You said this time would be different. But now the sun's gone again, and you're still here. Still you. Still scrolling past the same tasks, breaking the same promises, rehearsing the same story. Tomorrow. But here's the part no one tells you. That shame you feel, it's not weakness. It's your soul grieving the life you keep abandoning. Carl Jung said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul." If you like this type of video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. And that's exactly what you've done, isn't it? You've mastered the art of avoidance. You avoid the cold mirror. You avoid your journal. You avoid silence, because in silence, your truth gets loud. And the truth is this: you don't hate yourself. You just don't believe yourself anymore. Because belief is earned through action. And every time you choose escape over structure, you teach your nervous system that you can't be trusted. Not by others, by you. You scroll to feel alive, but all it does is numb you deeper. You call it burnout, but it's really betrayal fatigue. You're exhausted, not from doing too much, but from living in conflict with who you were meant to be. That version of you who follows through. He's not a fantasy, he's a memory. You've felt him before, in moments where you did what scared you. In days, you surprised yourself by keeping your word. But now, he's buried under excuses dressed as logic. And the more you ignore him, the heavier it gets. Stay in this cycle much longer. And one day you'll realize you didn't fail. You faded. You keep saying you're tired. But let me ask you something. Tired of what? Because it's not your body that's drained. It's the war inside your head that's wearing you down. One part of you wants discipline. Another part wants to disappear. One dreams of change. Another scrolls for escape. And you? You're stuck in the middle, wondering why you can't focus. You don't need more energy. You need integration. Your problem isn't laziness. It's fragmentation. You've become a system of internal contradictions, like a machine trying to go forward and backward at the same time. That's why you feel stuck. That's why nothing flows. Carl Jung warned us, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Right now, the part of you that fears failure is louder than the part of you that's ready to lead. Not because it's stronger, but because you keep feeding it. You feed it with distractions, with numbing, with the quiet decision to do what's comfortable instead of what's true. Let's be brutally honest. You don't lack direction. You just abandon the part of you that knows the direction because listening to him means risking disappointment. But here's the cost. Every day you avoid that inner leader, your psyche becomes more fragmented. And the more fragmented you become, the less focus you'll have. Not because your attention is weak, but because your identity is at war. Think about it. How can a man move with power when half of him is sabotaging every step? You say you want focus, but focus is a side effect. The real need is wholeness, because a man who is whole doesn't try to focus. He just does. No resistance, no war, just alignment. And that's what you've been missing. You've been lied to. You were told discipline is about willpower, that it's about pushing harder, grinding more, waking up earlier, suffering longer. And every time you try, you treat discipline like a punishment, like something you have to do because you're not good enough yet. But that's not discipline. That's self-rejection with a productivity mask. Here's the truth. Discipline is not effort. It's identity. When you are the kind of person who keeps his word, you don't need to force it. You follow through because it's who you are, not because it's on a checklist. Think about the last time you kept a commitment without overthinking. It wasn't exhausting. It felt natural, clean, right. Not because you were hyped, but because, for that moment, you were aligned. That's the secret no one talks about. You don't become disciplined through force. You become disciplined when your actions match your beliefs, and your beliefs match your identity. The problem is, most men never update their self-image. They try to stack new habits on top of an old identity that says, I'm inconsistent, I never finish, I always fall off. So they start a routine, crush a few days, and then sabotage it. Not because it's hard, but because staying consistent would betray who they think they are. Carl Jung said, "You are what you do, not what you say you'll do. And what you do is what you've been rehearsing. So maybe you're not undisciplined. Maybe you're just deeply rehearsed in avoidance. And until you change that script, nothing else changes. You don't need to try harder. You need to become someone who doesn't need to try. Because keeping your word feels like breathing. That's not force, that's alignment. And once it clicks, discipline stops being a struggle and starts becoming your nature. You keep calling it weakness, lack of willpower, lack of motivation. But that's not what's killing your progress. What's really killing you is disconnection. You're not failing because you're broken. You're failing because the part of you that knows how to lead has been exiled. Carl Jung called it the repression of the noble archetype. The king, the warrior, the builder inside every man who was born to bring order, structure, direction. But instead of cultivating that part, life taught you to lock him away. Maybe someone mocked your ambition. Maybe you tried and failed, and no one helped you stand back up. Maybe discipline was used against you, to shame you, to control you. So you built a defense, self-sabotage disguised as, "I'll start Monday." That king part of you, the one who could structure your time, lead your mind, and command your mornings, he didn't die. He was banished, out of fear of your own power. Because here's the brutal truth. If you actually committed, if you became consistent, then you'd lose your last excuse. You wouldn't be potential anymore. You'd be proof. And proof leaves nowhere to hide. That's why discipline terrifies you. Because if you really step into it, you'll have to confront the terrifying responsibility of becoming who you were always meant to be. So you keep breaking your own word, not because you want to fail, but because part of you still believes you must. But here's the shift Jung offered us. This isn't about becoming someone new. It's about reclaiming someone old, someone ancient and powerful inside you who's been watching, waiting. Not to dominate, not to impress, but to restore order to the chaos inside your soul. You don't need more motivation. You need reunion. You can't build a life of order while secretly believing you don't deserve it. That's the quiet truth no one tells you. You keep trying to fix yourself, but the version of you who can follow through will never show up in a system built on self-punishment. The shame you carry, the voice that says, "You always fall off. That's just who you are. That fire never lasts." That voice isn't discipline. It's a scar, a memory of every time you tried and failed and blamed yourself for the pain. Carl Jung said that the most disciplined parts of us are also the most vulnerable, because real discipline doesn't come from force. It comes from belief. And when that belief gets shattered early, through humiliation, rejection, or neglect, the disciplined self goes into hiding. It's not that you're lazy, it's that your inner leader doesn't feel safe to show up. Let that sink in. You've been trying to brute force change, when what you actually needed was reconciliation. You've been fighting the lazy part of you, calling it the enemy, trying to kill it off like a virus. But that version of you, the one who hides, scrolls, disappears, he isn't your destroyer. He's your protector. He showed up when the world got too loud, too unsafe, too painful. He kept you numb so you didn't break. And now, he's still here, still running your routines. Not because he wants to ruin your future, but because no one ever told him the war was over. So, here's the real initiation. Stop fighting him. Talk to him. Ask him, "What pain are you protecting me from?" Because only when you understand him can you lead him. Discipline begins where blame ends. And for most men, that moment only comes when they realize they don't need to be fixed. They need to be forgiven. By now you've felt it, the subtle shift. Not hype, not motivation, but something quieter, heavier, a remembering. Because real discipline isn't about doing more. It's about becoming someone different, by remembering who you were before the world fractured you. Carl Jung said, "Wholeness is not achieved by adding more, but by embracing all of who you are." That's what you're doing now, not fixing your life, reclaiming your throne. Discipline is not a morning routine. It's not a calendar. It's not even about habits. It's architecture, psychological structure, a sacred order you build inside yourself, so the world outside doesn't break you again. You don't rise by chance. You rise by design, brick by brick, word by word, action by action. Every time you wake up on time, every time you say no to distraction, every time you keep your word, even when no one is watching. You're not just being productive, you're laying a foundation, and one day that foundation becomes a temple, a life you can trust, a man you can believe in. But let me be clear, this path isn't clean. You will fail, you will slip. But if your identity is rebuilt, you will not quit, because men don't rise through hype. They rise through rhythm, not force, ritual. Discipline becomes your daily declaration. This is who I am. This is what I build. And soon, you'll look in the mirror, and the man staring back is no longer a someday fantasy. He is your reflection, not because you added anything, but because you stopped living as a reaction and started living as a man with an internal throne. The king isn't coming. He's always been here. You just forgot to give him the crown. So take it. Now, not when you feel ready, but because you finally remember what you came here to do. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel.